Welcome, everybody. Welcome. Good to see you all. Thanks so much for being here. Just going to give it sort of a few extra seconds to let people flow into the room. If you can just give me a quick thumbs up emoji that you can hear me all okay in the audience, that would be wonderful. Thank you so much, my good buddy Mitch. Appreciate you. John, good to see you. Thanks for making it. And your video today was absolutely brilliant. Everyone, folks, definitely check out John Lindsay's profile in the audience. He's doing some fantastic things when it comes to all things legal tech, and also in a very entertaining fashion. So his videos are not only hilarious, but they're super educational. Good to see Mark and so many others people who are fans. Maria, great to see you. I hope you are well as well. It's been a little while. So thank you so much for taking the time to jump in. And Sheila and Josh and Tegan, thanks for popping in as well. And Fernando and everybody. Really, really appreciate you all. So let's jump into it, folks. Firstly, we're delighted to be back with our Web3 Monday events after a mini break, principally because I came down with COVID for a couple of weeks and it really wiped me out, folks. But we are ready to rock again, and boy, are you in for a treat today. But before we go into that, I have two quick shout outs to our two regular co-hosts who I will formally introduce in a moment. Firstly, Mitch, huge congratulations to your super talented son, Garrett, on his recent graduation. I really enjoyed following the social media journey and just really loved everything about that. And secondly, Francesca, your two boys are just far too cute for everything. So thank you for also sharing so many great posts. And folks, family matters. That's why we're here. You know, family is the number one thing above and beyond. So I just wanted to sort of highlight both of those dear friends of mine. And, you know, as a recent first-time father, it just really touched home with me. So let's get into today's LinkedIn Live audio, where we are going to be talking about teaching in the metaverse with our very special guest, Charles Liu. It has been said the metaverse is the next level of social interaction, combining multiple technologies like AR, VR, and many others. The owner of Meta himself, Mark Zuckerberg, has openly said, currently we look at the internet, but soon we will be in for authentic experiences. So, is gaming the future for all of us, including the education system, or is that just a simple fallacy? Should you already be familiar with the likes of Minecraft and Fortnite? And did you know that the gaming giant Roblox offers a wealth of gaming opportunities with over 45 million active users, with an increase of over 20% in the last couple of years? Experts predict that the metaverse will be more omnipresent than the likes of TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook. And how are pioneers leading the way, building this metaverse infrastructure so we have a fit for purpose education system to leverage the potential of the metaverse as a 3D, global, interconnected, immersive, and real time online space? What new ways do we truly need to connect the physical world with augmented and virtual reality experiences? So, hopefully, folks, that has piqued your interest ahead of today's discussion. Give me a thumbs up if you're keen to learn how we as a collective can all learn more about the metaverse today. Fabulous. Really, really excited for this one. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Rob Hanna. I'm the founder of KC Partners. We're a legal talent solution and content creation firm focused all around community. We help lawyers with their careers to land their dream jobs. I'm also the super proud host of the LinkedIn Audio Town Hall, held bi-weekly on Sundays, a strategic advisor and investor to recruitment and legal tech startups. And I'm the host of the Legally Speaking podcast, a top 1.5% globally ranked show. And as of this year, with my dear friend Caleb Fole, who you see on stage, we also co-founded Virtual Insanity, which has a very simple aim of aiming to bridge the gap between the mainstream and the metaverse with digestible content around all things NFTs and Web3. And aside from that, I'm a proud first-time father and also parent to my miniature dachshund dog, Otto. That all said, folks, I can't do what I do without collaborating with amazing humans, right and like-minded people. So today we have an incredible panel and, as I mentioned, a very special guest with us when it comes to discussing teaching in the metaverse. Firstly, please do note, folks, this room is going to be recorded. All the content shared is purely for educational purposes only. We'll be running for about 1 hour. So in the meantime, please do hit the invite button and invite some of your friends, connections into the room so we can all learn and mastermind together. And feel free to take a screenshot and tag myself and some of the co-hosts and speakers that resonate with you and share some of your learnings from today with your community. So myself and the panel will be asking Charles some questions, but this is an inclusive space. So please feel free to raise your hands, come up onto the stage, ask us anything related to the topic, and use this time to really upskill and learn from investing the time and energy and efforts for actually being here. And there's no such thing as a silly questions in this room. We're all still learning. So please feel very, very welcome to do so. So without further ado, I'd firstly like to welcome the wonderful Francesca Witzberg, who is a top trademark and copyright lawyer. She helps individuals and businesses in entertainment, fashion, beauty, luxury, technology, consumer products, and so much more to monetize their intellectual property assets. She has counseled some of the world's top businesses, celebrities, artists, athletes, influencers, and many, many more. And now she runs her own Decentral Lawyer social media handle where she provides top-notch, folks, aspects of content around trademark and brand protection relating to up-to-date Web3 and NFT content. She really is the #1 person when it comes to IP and navigating the world of NFTs and Web3. So definitely check out her profile. Definitely hit the bell. Don't just follow her here on LinkedIn, but also follow her on Instagram and her other social media handles. Also, we're joined by the wonderful Mitch Jackson, who is an award-winning 2013 California Litigation Lawyer of the Year. And over the last 35 years, Mitch has helped hundreds of clients with their startup, business planning, and litigation needs. And when Mitch isn't representing clients, he enjoys giving keynote presentations focused on helping people better understand and leverage the intersection of law and tech. And Mitch recently, along with his son, really excited about this, Mitch, the father-son duo, super cool, co-founded Maneuver, a leading cutting-edge metaverse and Web3 consultancy agency. And you definitely want to check out and find out more, which you can simply do by going to mitchjackson.com. And of course, my fellow co-founder of Virtual Insanity, Caleb Foll, who is one of the top Web3 entrepreneurs and NFT community builders and thought leaders, and one I am naming one to watch when it comes to the space, folks. It's a real pleasure to have you all. But as I mentioned, we are joined by a very special guest today. So we are joined by the incredible Charles Liu. Charles is a multifaceted humanitarian and business leader. He owns several successful technology and hospitality businesses, and Charles is also the managing partner of the Liu Law Firm and high-profile LA-based celebrity attorney with a core focus on business law, trendy restaurant concepts, entrepreneurs, real estate, land use, government, community relationships, and more. He's had the honor of appearing on multiple panels nationwide concerning business law and various other aspects I've just mentioned. He regularly writes for Forbes and will be shortly, folks, teaching the law of the metaverse at Loyola Law School. Charles is passionate about the world of Web3 and giving back to community, and he's involved in a number of charities, the likes of Adopt Together, Mental Health America, and Stout Sip. He has also produced many publications, far too many to mention today, folks, but one I would highlight in particular was a recent one in crypto news. Charles Liu leads Los Angeles into the metaverse. So, folks, can we just give a quick clap and applaud for our panel and guest speaker today, taking the time to really talk us through this exciting journey of education and technology and what we're in for. Awesome. So I'm going to come to Charles first to kick off with some questions, and then if Mitch or Francesca or Caleb has anything, or any of you in the audience would like to chime in and ask a question, feel free to do so. Charles, firstly, before we start talking about the metaverse, it'd be great just to know a bit about your background and journey and how it brought you to where you are today with being so present with the metaverse. Over to you, my friend.
Thank you so much for such a warm introduction, Rob. I really appreciate it. Thanks to the other speakers, this esteemed panel that I am very honored to be a part of. And in general, thank you for having me. So again, metaverse. I feel like the way I arrived at this and at this particular place is the same way I arrive at most of my destinations, which is a predominantly luck and maybe a few sagacious moments, and then kind of stumbling along until I arrive at a place that seems to be generally a positive place. I always think about Steve Jobs' comment in the Isaacson book that you can't connect the dots looking forward, you can only connect them looking back. And that has been like really a motto for me since reading his book, which definitely lends to and I think lends credibility to my life and kind of how I ended up here, which was certainly a string of fortuitous events that were very, very happenstance and certainly could never have been predicted. I grew up in Scotland, a very, very small town on the West Coast. One of those no street lights, no electric cars in any windows, one television. It was a 12-inch black and white with the crazy little ears that you had to get just right, and someone had to stand behind the TV so they missed Buck Rogers while the other people got to watch it. So not technology focused or forward or advanced at all. Played a huge amount of chess, hiked a lot, read a lot, played a lot of Dungeons and Dragons, which was horribly nerdy then, but as we know, quite a lot of the nerdy things have now become very, very trendy and very cool. So 40 years later, the chess and the Dungeons and Dragons became much cooler than when I was playing them and getting into fights in the putting green and in the playground because of playing them. Moved to Los Angeles from Florida when I was 22, just for law school. Ended up at Loyola Law School. Came to Florida at 13 from Scotland, which was obviously a complete culture shock. Moved to Los Angeles just for law school. Ended up at Loyola, which I'm forever grateful for. It was really an incredible, incredible experience, as I think law school is for most of the people that go there, but I'm sure we'll touch on that more later. Certainly the entire geography of law school has dynamically shifted, truly a paradigm shift just in the 20 years since I graduated. But Loyola was always a very entrepreneurial-focused law school and certainly fostered and curated a very entrepreneurial mindset, which was perfect for me because I was not the best traditional student. Left law school and actually didn't practice law at all. I did executive protection and bodyguard services for a couple years and traveled around doing completely non-legal work. Stumbled back to LA, again stumbled with no GPS, Thomas guides then, and stumbled back to LA upon the conclusion that I really didn't want to babysit celebrities and high net worth individuals anymore. Picked up a job at a nightclub bar. The owner of that nightclub bar purchased another nightclub bar, got into a legal dispute about that nightclub bar prior to closing, had no money, and hired me as his security/lawyer to conduct an arbitration, which we won, and then I was gifted a portion of that bar for my services in arbitration. That bar did very well, fortunately, and became a very popular, very well-known TV bar, which launched quite a few restaurants and bars and other hospitality projects, which has now turned into double-digit, actually quite a few more now on account of some recent acquisitions, but double-digit hospitality concepts, which interestingly enough, Rob, probably positioned me well to hear technology and a lot of exciting technological advancements and technological projects, including Web3 and the Metaverse, because I've always been surrounded by certainly younger individuals, because a lot of our staff are considerably younger. And also, I think just the discourse that happens in the restaurants and the bars just always piques your curiosity. So you're sitting in these bars and restaurants enjoying a scotch or a beer or whatever your proclivity, and you hear something that you don't want to say at that point in time. I have no idea what you're talking about. So you nod your head and continue to listen, and then you run home and Google it. So I think the bars and restaurants probably, and I've never thought about this actually just until now, but probably spawned and gave the opportunity to be in touch with such a broad spectrum and such a diverse group of people that really um, uh, kind of acted as the provenance for my interest in technology. So here we are in 2022, recovering from COVID. I'm a Los Angeles City Small Business Commissioner, which is also providing an incredible opportunity to work with some of the greatest minds in the city and also work with the small businesses as we attempt to emerge from COVID and the deleterious impacts of the pandemic, which we're all acutely aware of. And we've dove into the metaverse and the legal aspects of it. And excited to be teaching a class starting in August, again, with Loyola, again, a very clear example of their entrepreneurial spirit and that entrepreneurial opportunity that is clearly evident there. And building this Meta Law Plaza in Sandbox right now that I think is I don't want to say it is going to redefine the practice of law, because that would be a massive comment, but I believe that 400 years later, the evolution of law is long overdue. So I think we're seeing lots of redefining, and I think that we will be a small portion of it. So sorry for the long and drawn out introduction, but that is who I am and what we're doing.
Not at all. Thank you for such a great overview and setting the scene and taking us on the journey. I thoroughly enjoyed listening to that. So yeah, would love to come back to you with another question. I also want to welcome my good friend Trevor onto the stage. Good to see you, buddy. And if you've got a question at any point for Charles about sort of teaching in the metaverse or anything Web3, please feel free just to sort of give us a thumbs up, and you're welcome to do so. So Charles, I'm going to ask you a question, and I'd love to maybe get Francesca's perspective as well. And the reason for that is, in your recent Forbes article, you speak about how the value of intellectual property can only increase in relation to growth and development in the digital world. So can you explain a bit further on this?
Sure. So, and I'm sure Francesca is infinitely better positioned to explain this, but absolutely, I'll give you kind of the anecdotal thought and the reason I wrote about it in Forbes. And it's actually interesting because that was a follow-up to a prior Forbes article that I'd written entitled, Your Most Valuable Property Is No Longer Brick and Mortar. So obviously, you know, traditionally and for our entire lives and generationally, we've been taught that brick and mortar and real estate is property. It's the tangible property. It's what's made generational legacy wealth. It's created millions and millions and billions of dollars for people. So it's one of those things that as we started to see this digital presence grow, and I think you can track this back all the way to the original web, we started to at least understand that there was going to be some real value to this digital property. And of course, as time has gone on, we've understood that not only is there more and more value to digital property, but with COVID acting as this catalyst, not acting solely, but I believe certainly as a major accelerant. We've come to understand that your digital property and your digital holdings and your digital IP is invaluable. It is incredibly, you cannot even emphasize how valuable it is. And of course, we've got numerous real world examples from Nike to Adidas, and I mentioned quite a few of them in this most recent Forbes article. But as time is going on, and as people spend more and more time immersed into their phones, which will be hopefully at a certain point in time, right now not really there, as everybody knows from a metaverse perspective, but certainly as time goes on, that will certainly be if we want to see this $13 trillion market opportunity that people are discussing, it's going to have to be driven by mobile technology. As this continues and as this grows, we're only going to see more need for the protection of digital property or of properties in a digital world. So now we're seeing these registrations in virtual goods and services, which has been very, very interesting for our practice because we've done hundreds and hundreds of trademarks. And now we're just beginning to see, not just, but over the last 3 months, we're seeing our clients actually take the initiative to call and say, hey, I'm starting to hear that this is important. I'm starting to see this on Google and various articles and Forbes articles, including my articles. And we want to make sure that our trademarks, our properties, which we spent a huge amount of time and energy to protect, are similarly protected now in the virtual world as they are in the material world.
Yeah, no, really well said, Charles, and thanks for sharing that. And I absolutely echo it. And I would love to come to you, Francesca, to sort of share your perspective on that as well. And in relation to the value of IP, and only increasing with the growth and development of this digital world. Would love to get your thoughts.
Thanks, Rob. And thank you so much, Charles. That was amazing. I love your story, love what you're doing. And I love that you wrote an article about the importance of intellectual property. And I started the year with an article, top trends that we're going to see in 2022. And my number one was that all businesses, small entrepreneurs, whatever size you are, will understand the value of intellectual property. It has been a technical term for a long time, but intellectual property is not just for Fortune 500 companies. These are our brand names, our titles, our personal brands, and so much of our businesses are intellectual property, especially with everything being online now. So I'm always talking about that. And from my end, what I'm seeing is, yes, businesses come to me, say, hey, Francesca, I heard I need this thing called a trademark. We go and we do a search, and it turns out that someone else either already registered the name or they registered something that's so close that it prevents the client from registering their name. So I call this trademark real estate. And I've been writing about this too, how we're actually running out of trademark real estate. Yes, you can think of, a brand name. You could probably try to come up with something new, but the reality is there's only a finite amount of words in the English language. So when you think you came up with this genius new name, if it's something that's catchy and suggests your business, there is a chance that someone else actually already beat you to the punch. And I'm seeing this more and more. I've been doing trademark searches. Gosh, I wish I kept tally on them. I've done a lot in the past like 8 years, and I'm not seeing anything like it. This year has been unprecedented in the amount of names I'm finding that have already been taken or are getting blocked because of something similar. Because of exactly what you said, Charles, people are becoming more aware. Any size business, whether you're a solopreneur or a mid-sized or a big business, is registering their names, and so everyone's kind of rushing to the register. So it's been interesting, and this is why we have rooms like this to educate and empower people to be proactive and register their names.
Absolutely, and that's why people need to also be following people like you, Francesca. So really appreciate your insights on that. And before, Charles, I jump to you, and then I would love to get Mitch's thoughts on my next point. I just want to also say a special thank you to Kimberly King in the audience, who very kindly made today happen and connected myself and Charles. And Kimberly is a wonderful community builder. She's also, a CEO and futurist, and has a real impact when it comes to all things sort of blockchain, the metaverse, and Web3, and just a wonderful supporter and champion of mine. So I just want to say thank you so much, Kimberly, for making this event happen today and all you do for the communities. So we're talking about teaching in the metaverse, Charles, but I would love to sort of just ask and maybe flip to Mitch, because Mitch is working in the metaverse, and I know he's one of the early adopters to have taken his firm to doing that. How do you think the legal industry is going to adapt to using Web3, and how has your firm taken steps to really adopt it?
Well, we're taking definitely what I would consider a novel approach right now, and I think the jury is certainly out to see how effective it'll be. But one of the things we're doing that we're extraordinarily excited about, Rob, is we're building again this Meta Law Plaza. The idea behind the Meta Law Plaza was we wanted to create a virtual one-stop shop. So we're creating this beautiful, and I've got a team of former Disney Imagineering gentlemen who are just infinitely aesthetically gifted. They're drawing things and drafting things that I see, and if you gave me 100 years, I couldn't do what they recreate or they create in 15 minutes. So what we want to do was the idea was we were going to create this center, this metaverse center, where someone could go, and if they were looking for a personal injury lawyer, they could find one. If they're looking for an estate lawyer, a family lawyer, an IP lawyer, if they're looking for a business contract lawyer. And then what we wanted to do was we wanted to support those businesses with the traditional legal support businesses that you would find. So we had a company called Amicus Finance, which is a very, very well-known litigation finance company, that looked at this and said, wow, this is incredible. It's very exciting. It's entrepreneurial. It seems quite prescient. We would love to have a presence there. We've got a digital background search company. We've got a digital notary company. And then the really exciting thing that we're doing is we've created and partnered with one of the larger legal conference companies to do the first legal conference in our digital courtyard. So the whole idea here, again, was circling back on a theme that I've been talking about for quite some time. And I genuinely believe that it's something that needs to be focused on and thought about. And this also links back to mental health and mental health for lawyers, which I'm keenly concerned. I'm just aware of and extremely concerned about. And it's something that it is not going away, and it's not going away for a number of reasons. And it's something that needs to be addressed, but it's a much bigger conversation. But the idea here was that this evolution of law, which really hasn't evolved in 400 years, is going to accelerate right now, and this evolution is going to go from 0 to 100 miles an hour. And we wanted to be well-positioned, extremely well-positioned in the metaverse to say, not only do we have a presence in the metaverse, but we're building this one-stop meta law shop. And you'll be able to come down, you'll be able to walk around, you'll be able to meet your friends, you'll be able to walk into virtual law firms and be told, you know what, this is not something that we would necessarily handle, but please go next door. Again, just in keeping with this thematic, this idea and narrative that law is evolving, that the new students that are coming out are going to radically redefine the practice, and that the 1.3 existing lawyers are going to have to really pay heed, and they're going to have to be very cognizant of technology. And if they are, it's going to make all of us that much better.
Yeah, I'm fascinated and just super excited to see where this all goes. And Mitch, we'd love to jump to you, because you've written the Metaverse Handbook. I know you're proactive and you do a huge amount to educate your community. So I'd love to get your thoughts on anything you've heard thus far, and equally where you see the evolution of the legal industry and maybe some of your learnings thus far.
I love being a fly on the wall right now and just listening to the conversation. I'm so excited about what I'm hearing. Charles, it's good to meet you. I was just up in LA last Friday for my son's graduation at USC Marshall School of Business. Our daughter is a third-year lawyer at Shepherd Mullen in Century City. So you and I need to get together sometime. We're both in the same area. It's interesting. I'm excited to see and hear what Charles is doing. He and I share a similar background, and I too worked the front door at a couple of bars in Tucson, Arizona. I was a bartender and waiter in college, and a lot of what I learned back then when it comes to people skills, when it comes to diffusing situations, when it comes to stepping up and taking care of business, I've been able to roll over, Rob, into being a trial lawyer, but also I'm seeing the same approach in the virtual spaces. And what I mean by that is I think and I'm sure Charles is doing this just from the fact that he's got Disney, creators or designers or people with experience at Disney helping build this idea out. I'm a firm believer that as we venture into the virtual spaces, into the Web3 technologies, we still have to focus as lawyers, as business owners, as entrepreneurs, whatever we do for a living, at being very, very good at what we do. Okay. We also want to focus on how can we create this virtual experience where we're adding value to our clients or customers? How can we do that while creating an exemplary client experience? And I think the smart business owners, the smart lawyers that move forward, whether they're in the space that Charles is creating or, on some of the other platforms in the various metaverse spaces, I think the smart lawyers that focus on the first three, be good at what you do, because that really does matter, go out of your way to add value, create a great customer experience, but then, embrace blockchain technology, smart contracts, digital wallets, NFTs, all the different bells and whistles that are out there, to pull it all together to help the client move forward with solving his, her, or their legal problems and issues. And I think that's the formula. I see a lot. Charles, I would just love to hear your thoughts on lawyers, for example, or let's just say any professional or business owner that wants to plant a flag in the metaverse. Okay. And so they get FOMO kicks in. They want to get this thing done immediately. They plant their flag, they open up a shop, they build their office, but they're not ready for the other things that I just talked about, because there are new nuances with engaging clients in these virtual spaces, right? Whether it's signing documents, whether it's following up with in real life depositions or court hearings or trials. What are your thoughts? What are your recommendations? What will you be telling your students at Loyola when it comes to pulling it all together when dipping their toe in the Web3 sandbox? Really curious to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, thanks, Mitch. And I would absolutely love to connect. So next time you're in Los Angeles, please let us know. I think this space is moving so fast. And again, the acceleration of it is just unparalleled. I tell people, they always say to me, what do you do to stay abreast of things? And aside, this isn't just flattery. Aside from listening to all of the individuals on this panel, yourself included, Mitch, one of the things I do, and it sounds funny, is I go on YouTube every single morning. I go to the gym every single morning at 5:30 to 6, and I go on YouTube and I just type metaverse into the search, and whatever comes up, I go to the past 24 hours tab, so that it only gives the things that have posted in the last 24 hours, and I just listen. So I pick 4 or 5 videos to listen to. Quite often, they are of no use whatsoever. So I probably listen to 20 to 30 minutes of videos that are nonsensical and predominantly useless, but I always will get 1 or 2 videos that are really just seemingly thought forward and oftentimes experimentally such. There'll be hypotheticals, and people will be putting forward positions that are not commonly held. Again, Mitch, that's actually how I found you, is doing just that. So that's one of the things that I've been engaged in, and it's been very helpful. As far as when people ask me, how can I get involved with this? How can I understand? I tell them that there's quite a few people on Twitter that I tell people that they need to follow. There's quite a few people on YouTube that I think are incredibly well versed in this. But I'll tell you the interesting thing. I remember I had an interview with one of the local TV stations during COVID, and I said, as a lawyer, we are programmed to never ever say I don't know. Like, those 3 words as a lawyer are blasphemy, because I don't know doesn't equate to charging $800 an hour. So even if you don't know, you sit and in your most lawyerly, verbose way, you come up with an answer that, while it won't land you in any hot water with the bar, it's really giving no answer whatsoever. So I have found myself since COVID becoming very, very comfortable with the answer, I don't know. And I think never before COVID, obviously, but never before has that seemed more appropriate, because the more that I've learned and the more that I'm learning in the metaverse and the more conversations I'm having again, because there's obviously this very interesting delineation between the people from a legal perspective who are thinking through the myriad of legal questions that we're going to have. And that's everything from contractual binding to choice of law to intellectual properties to assaults. And we're just seeing now the first case law coming down and the first rulings in these original cases or in these first cases. So I've just got really, really comfortable, Mitch, telling people I don't know. And I've got really comfortable telling people I'm not quite sure, but I will certainly get back to you. And again, I know as a quote thought leader or someone that may be looked at as a thought leader on account of some publications, I know that's not the best answer, but I really love this idea right now that we're all in a place in a position where there's no bravado necessarily, and that we can all really have some humility and just say, I just don't know, but I'll tell you, I'm going to find out, and I'm going to listen to lots of YouTube, and I'm going to listen to lots of gentlemen like yourself, and one way or another, I'm going to come back with an answer. But yeah, I've got very, very proficient at telling people I don't know recently.
You're not the only one. I love hearing that, Charles. I spoke at CEX last week in Phoenix, and I've never seen as much enthusiasm in the business world, especially over my last 40 years of being an entrepreneur, 35 as a trial lawyer, with what we're talking about right now in a Web3 environment. Things are happening in real time so fast that I don't care if you are the sharpest knife in the drawer. It's hard to stay on top of all the details. And what you just shared is a great opportunity to invite a client to come back and say, listen, I'm not really sure what the answer to that question is, but let's find out together. And then you jump in a virtual space, you do a little research on Google, or you bring your assistants in and you handle it in real time. And clients are just blown away by that. Real quick thought on your law school students, I would definitely double down on helping them learn good persuasive communication skills in the metaverse platforms. I think it's critically important. I think that's something that a lot of people are missing out on as they're creating these office spaces or virtual buildings or conference rooms, and they're showing up, but they're not using metaphors. They're not using the space in the room and anchor points. They're not using voice inflection or storytelling techniques through their avatar to entertain and frankly close the deal. And I think that's something I would love to see law schools maybe double down on, because I still think it's one of the most important elements of everything that we're talking about today. So I think we're in for a fun ride, and I'm so glad our paths have crossed. Rob, back over to you.
I'm just loving the conversation, and it's great, and I really hope you guys get to meet up in soon. I want to jump to Caleb, because Caleb, I know you want to take a quick poll of the audience, and we'll jump back to Charles.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Everybody in the audience, please react with anything if you are enjoying what Charles is saying right now. I am learning a lot. I really appreciate Charles coming up here. I've been talking with a lot of the people who have been attending these rooms, and I think everybody's biggest question, and honestly, this is the $30 billion question anyways, is how do I make money in this space? A lot of people only care about how can I make money right now, right? What do you say to the people who are hesitant to getting into the metaverse, right? Because from a B2C standpoint, and even from a B2B standpoint, it makes sense, right? Community building, you can connect with people on a different level. It's an experience. But how is it practical for businesses who are making money right now? How is it practical for them to get into the metaverse as it is right now?
Yeah, it's a great question, Caleb. Thanks. I have this kind of amorphous, ethereal idea about making money, and it's certainly not one that would be endorsed by Warren Buffett or any real economic pecuniary masters. I always kind of thought if you focus on passion and you do what you love to do, and you do it with alacrity and you do it with enthusiasm, and you're invigorated when you talk to people about it, I always feel that if there's a level of proficiency there, that the money will come. And I know, again, that's again this kind of amorphous build it and they will come idea. So I'm going to give a little thought behind it that maybe a little more practical. I think we're just going to see, I look at this as an opportunity to be in the web in 2002 or 3 or 4 or 5. And I know we can track it back before then, but that was when I at least saw and heard not only the initial opportunities that the web was going to present, but I remember also, and I have a very clear story that's a little long and drawn out, so I won't share, but I always reference it as the one of the most adamant and concise, wrong, but very concise pushbacks that I heard against the web and investing in a domain. So I look at this right now that this is your ability, this is your opportunity, no matter what type of business you are. We have a person that's listening right now who's a good friend and client of mine, who is like looking at a sports, and I won't share too much, but he's looking at a sports use for the metaverse that when we first sat down and hypothesized over it, I just thought in my head, this is so novel and so creative and so cool that people are going to be blown away by this particular thought and this utility and this use to gather a community around a sport that wouldn't traditionally do it in the metaverse. So I think, again, this to me is a web immersion. It's a full website that has the ability to be immersed into it. Instead of just a two-dimensional screen that I sit and point and click, I go to the little chat box that drives me up the wall because they're the most awful chats and conversationalists I've ever encountered in my whole life. And I engage in these horrible little chats, and 15 minutes later, I find myself with no additional information, frustrated, wanting to commit an act of violence against a chatbot, and logging off the internet or exiting the website. So I think this is opportunity to truly build and engage in communities, and not to digress to NFTs and some of these other remarkable economic opportunities that we've really seen come to light in this paradigm shift during COVID. But I look at the NFTs and the Discord and those communities, and I say that is an economic that is not solely driven, but truly largely driven by communities. And it's very, very easy to see the projects that just do okay. And I think there's almost a direct correlation between the strength of the communities. So that was what drove us with Meta Law Plaza to say, let's look at the legal sector. Let's look at this entire profession as a community, which I believe has always been a very overlooked community. It's a very large, it's an extraordinarily robust community. It could definitely be argued that there is disposable income within this community. It could definitely be argued that this community would be an intellectual and a forward-thinking community. And it's just an underserviced community. So for me, I said, let's not think, how do we make money immediately? I thought with my team, how do we build a community site, a community neighborhood, a plaza, a commercial plaza in the metaverse? And if we build this and the team makes it, again, aesthetically pleasing enough, and we can add enough content, and then the gamification of this location, I believe that the money comes because people will spend time there. And if people spend time there, people will spend money there. I thought about it a lot in terms of the old commercial mall model and the outdoor hospitality restaurant model that we see now, where you used to see someone would go to the mall, or they would go to a store and they would shop at that store and then they would leave. And then someone in a brief moment of insight thought, well, if we build multiple stores, then they'll all kind of facilitate each other, and the rising tide will lift all boats. And then someone said, well, look, if there's a restaurant place here, and there's a lunch place here, and there's a dinner place here, and there's somewhere for the families and the children to entertain small children, and there's somewhere for the adult to have a libation at some point during the day, and there's a movie theater in here, then we can spend the majority of our time and the majority of our free dollars at this singular location. But that was by creating a community or creating something that individuals wanted to be a community of. So I generally look at this and think, how do you create a community? If your community is the legal sector, fantastic. If your community is the medical sector, now someone should follow closely on our footsteps, I believe, and create Med Plaza and say, let's get a plastic surgeon person, let's get a general doctor, let's get a physical therapist, let's get a chiropractor, let's put all of these different ideas together, all of these different practices together, and have a community, a med plaza where people can come, they can visit, they can talk, they can engage in discourse, they can explore ideas and ideologies that they wouldn't do in any normal chat room, because it's like-minded individuals. And then the consumer can similarly look at it and say, wow, this is very cool. I would love to be able to go and talk to a plastic surgeon here, a cardiologist here, a neurologist here, and have, again, this kind of one-stop community shop. So that was kind of the approach we took. How do we build a community? How do we curate a community? How do we contribute enough to that community that not only does that community feel comfortable, but the people who are seeking the expertise of that community see this as a viable location to find said expertise?
You're talking our language, Charles. I think I'm happy to speak on behalf of everyone on the panel. We are massive advocates for community and think it is absolutely the number one thing when thinking about all things Web3. And you're most welcome to talk about NFTs. And my good friend Francesca would be more than happy to talk about NFTs and offline. And yes, to chiropractors, because the state of my back right now, I quite happily go into the metaverse and meet a highly qualified chiropractor. And just where, you mentioned the good old saying, where attention goes, the money flows. And I think that just sort of mirrors exactly what you were saying there. So I'd love to come to you with another quick question. I'd love to get Francesca's thoughts on this as well, because we touched on this briefly. And then my good friend Trevor, I think you've got a question as well. So we'll come to you after that. So you also mentioned in your Forbes article, and we touched on this before, but we are witnessing the likes of Nike, Adidas filing to protect their names and iconic logos and their virtual goods and services, in this space. So, why are we seeing such an increase in brands joining these virtual platforms in your experience, and why haven't some done it already?
Yeah, I think Francesca made a comment a little earlier about this digital real estate and protecting your digital real estate, and I absolutely love that comment. And I think it's such an insightful way to put it, because I think we're always looking for ways to relay specific information so that the general population, the community, can say, "Oh, I understand. That makes sense." So just as we define, what the metaverse is, and someone says, well, I don't understand it, can you explain it to me in a way that makes sense? So I think, again, she did such a good job of that. I think, again, you're just looking, you just said it, just follow the money. We're already seeing people attempting to squat on virtual properties, on a virtual intellectual properties. We're already seeing people talking about the opportunities for virtual services that, in an odd way, as we're starting to explore this, the virtual services actually make even more sense than the services being undertaken or conducted in the physical world or in the material world. So again, I think it's exactly what you alluded to. Where are the dollars flowing, and where is this attention going? And I think you're just going to see more and more and more. Again, Citi said by 2030, assuming that we can implement mobile technology, a $13 trillion market opportunity. $13 trillion. I mean, these are numerics that are completely unfathomable, and numerics that we wouldn't even have talked about a few years ago in any type of industry or any type of business or any type of sector. And the reason we can do it in this specific conversation is it encompasses all industries and all sectors. So I think again, you're just talking about numerics and a pecuniary nature that is difficult to grasp, opportunities that are difficult to grasp, and anytime you see this, you're going to see, unfortunately, bad actors and conspirators and malfeasance, and you're also going to see lazy people, and you're going to see people who are looking for that quick dollar. You're not going to see the 20-year to be an overnight success people are not cyber squatting or IP squatting. It's the people who are sitting there and they're saying to themselves, hey, there's something here and I'm going to take advantage of it. So I think just based on the scale and the magnitude of what's going to occur here, and I think everybody in the panel knows and can agree, this is truly the tip of the iceberg. I mean, this is we are not even, we talk about being forward, ahead of the curve and forward thinking and first movers. I mean, we are just now talking about really some of the potential, and I believe the vast majority of the potential in this business we won't even realize until we can get more immersed into it and say, oh, I never even thought about that. So I think it's just following the dollars. It's the bad actors, it's the conspirators that are going to follow the dollar. And you just look at these NFT drops and these mintings, and you just have to be so careful with every single thing you're doing, the phishing, and we're seeing, we have clients that are being robbed and being stolen. There's just such a inordinate amount right now of bad actors and again theft and conspirators, and it's a little scary, which again, not to digress, but brought me down the rabbit hole just a few days ago to cybersecurity and cybersecurity directly relating to the metaverse, and even down to biometrics and identity theft and retina theft. And of course, then I have to sit up all night and read about it because I just turned into a lunatic. The theft of heart rate and these other things that are going to be used to identify people. So again, I think it's just, what's the easy way to make money? And the second someone says, well, that's easy, you're going to have bad actors follow that. And then we're going to have to follow up with that to say, what can we do to prevent that? What can we do to avoid that? What can we do as lawyers and citizens and individuals of a altruistic nature? What can we do to make sure that the business stays on the right track?
Yeah, so many great points, and I agree. And I couldn't get my head around 44 billion when the Elon Musk Twitter. So 23 trillion, I think you said. If we can get my words out, it's just phenomenal.
13 trillion.
13 trillion.
13 trillion market opportunity. Yeah.
Wow.
And that's Citi. Yeah, that was Citi that just came out with an article.
Wow. So, folks, I still think you're like Charles saying, we're all super early, and you're super early to social audio. I mean, this feature here today, folks, is not even out to the whole of LinkedIn. We're in a beta form, so you're early to the early. And with that, I'd love to jump to you, Francesca, because obviously, Charles is talking a lot about the bad actors. I know you do a lot with helping, entrepreneurs, business owners with sort of launching and protecting their NFT projects. So, any insights you would like to share there? And then just sort of looping back to what I was mentioning around, the increase of seeing brands joining the virtual platforms, the likes of Nike, Adidas, etc. Your general thoughts around that from an IP perspective too.
A lot of people listening to this right now in our audience are leaders, whether you are a thought leader or a leader in your industry, an expert in your industry. And everyone here, kudos to you for taking the opportunity to sit and listen and learn, because we are all in the same boat. Charles hit the nail on the head that this is not a time to be pretentious or snooty, thinking that you know more than someone else, because there really are no experts in this. We are all in the same position. Some of us may have sat on YouTube University a little longer. So it's definitely important to do your homework and watch YouTube videos on the metaverse and NFTs and blockchain. But the technology is moving so fast that it's just, we all have to sit and learn. Charles, I saw you unmute. Do you have anything you want to say?
No. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to unmute myself.
Oh, no.
I will. Yes. No. You're wonderful. Yeah.
So that's really like the point I want to make is no matter where you are in your business as a consultant expert or even a goods provider, take the time to learn, connect with all of us. We're really doing what we can to share this information. And then from an IP perspective, it's more important than ever, no matter what business you have. Like I said, if you're an advisor or consultant, to talk to your clients about this, make sure that they're protecting their business in the metaverse and with NFTs. Just ask the question. I work with a lot of businesses that just by asking their clients the question, you don't have to be an IP lawyer. It will just really set you apart from everyone else. And as everyone continues to grow, pay it forward. Really learn, listen, think how you can integrate this into your business and protect clients. That's really my number one takeaway is just understand, learn, and look for ways to help each other and your clients.
Yeah, so true, and thank you for your great points, Francesca. And going to jump to my good friend Trevor in a moment, but you're hearing the words YouTube, folks, quite a lot, and there's no surprise. YouTube is now the second largest search engine in the world, and that links nicely to if you're liking this content, but maybe it's gone over your head, or you want to revisit and learn a little bit more. These episodes are being recorded and should be on our Virtual Insanity YouTube channel. And talking of cybersecurity, just the other week before we had our mini break, we had Mitch Jackson's good buddy Alex Holden come on, who's one of the top voices when it comes to all things cybersecurity. And, he's been credited with the discovery of many high profile breaches, including Adobe Systems, JP Morgan, and Yahoo breaches, you name it. So if you want access to that, folks, feel free to connect with Mitch or connect with us, send us a DM and we can give you that recording because that was awesome. We're hoping to get Alex back for some future chats soon. So with that, we'd love to jump to you, Trevor. Thanks for being so patient. Thanks for us joining today. I hope you've enjoyed the conversation. Would love for you to fire in with a question for Charles or the panel.
Yeah, thank you so much, Robert. It's been a fantastic discussion so far, and I've really enjoyed it. I've been taking a lot of notes myself. So I do a few different things. I'm president of a manufacturing company here where we make products for pets. I have a technology company called ScanShop 3D where we actually create high fidelity 3D assets for companies to take either in e-commerce or into content creation or into the metaverse. And so I've actually got two questions, and they're two completely different questions, but forgive me. Question one, as we are digitizing products, so we have a hyper photogrammetry machine. There's only one of them like it in North America. Somebody sends us an item, let's just say like Adidas, for example, just to pull out one of the innovators in the space, and we scan one of their shoes. How do they end up protecting? I understand how they protect the IP for their branding. But how do they protect the IP, or how do I advise our clients how to protect the IP on specific products that we're actually scanning and creating a 3D asset for going into there? And it's just a pretty wide question, but how do we advise them they protect their their new Gucci purse or their new Adidas and MND shoes from being ripped off, since they are unique items that are being in the metaverse. The second question, completely different. Forgive me, and if somebody wants to bifurcate this, my question is, why does everybody always talk about office buildings and creating a similar experience virtually to what we're doing in real life? I would challenge everyone to think of how can we do this without limitations, because that's what the metaverse is really doing for us, is it's removing those limitations of physical. So why not take why not do a legal consultation from a cloud, hovering over the San Francisco Golden Gate Bridge? I don't know, I'm just curious on why everybody tends to use this regular frame thinking when really there is no limit, and we're just actually inserting these artificial limits on our own. So two completely different questions. I'm sorry, Robert. This is Trevor. I'm back to you.
Trevor, bringing the gold though. Great questions. So thank you so much. So I'd love to jump to maybe Francesca first to get your thoughts on
Sure.
the IP perspective. Then Charles, would love for you to share your thoughts, and then maybe the second part of the question too.
The really cool thing about intellectual property is that there's multiple different tools that you can use to protect something. So when clients come to me, they'll say, hey, I have this thing, I want to patent it. Or I have this thing and I want to protect it with a copyright. And I tell them that that's the equivalent of going to the doctors and saying, hey, doc, my knee hurts. Give me this medicine and it'll make me feel better. No, you're going to the doctor so that the doctor can review, the doctor can give you their expertise and analyze. Maybe it's actually some other thing on your body that's causing that knee pain. So similarly to that, there is an intellectual property toolbox, and there's multiple different ways that you may be able to protect the whatever it is that you're protecting. So I already can think of a couple. It's really going to depend on what the business is making and how they're using it, especially with products becoming not just physical products, but now business thinking, I want to protect my virtual products, my virtual goods. How do we do that with NFTs? Can we do it with contracts? Can we copyright some of the material? Can we copyright the 3D print? There's all of these things, to think about. So, but really the first step is honestly having a lawyer sit and look at it with someone who's going to be a little bit more holistic, not just spot treat you and give a deep dive, and coming up with a creative intellectual property strategy, because that's really what it is right now. Is we're trying to figure out how to apply the law to these new technologies, and there may be more than one way, but you really should work with someone who's going to understand and figure out how to apply it. So Trevor, I'm happy to chat offline because I don't want to give too many specifics, but that's really the starting point.
Absolutely, and just Mitch has had to run because it's the top of the hour, so want to be respectful of everyone's time, but would love to, Charles, to get your thoughts and comments to Trevor's points. And thanks for that, Francesca.
Yeah, absolutely. And I won't touch on what Francesca just mentioned because she's infinitely better at speaking on it than I will. So I will move on to something that's a little more mundane or a little more general law. And this is something that's been actually very interesting and popped up for us last week in a contract that had almost, Trevor, interestingly enough, it's almost the identical fact pattern to what you're asking. And while, as Francesca said, there's certainly very nuanced intellectual property considerations there, there's also, and this is I think this is very applicable for everybody listening, there's also a really, from where I sit, a very exciting opportunity right now to look at the boilerplate provisions that we've seen in every single contract that every single one of us has looked at 50 times. And we've actually looked at them so many times that we actually stop paying attention to them anymore. So very, very simple things like, for example, a choice of law provision. We've seen this provision, we've seen it so many times, again, we become very numb to it. So the choice of law provision will say something to the effect of, should a dispute arise in this matter, that dispute will be governed by the laws of the County of Los Angeles, State of California. Well, obviously, as we can all imagine, as we delve deeper and deeper into the metaverse and deeper into this digital realm, that becomes a real question. What laws govern this contract, and how will those laws be integrated, and how will they be arbitrated, or how will these disputes be resolved? So not only do we have the intellectual property concerns, which are obviously vast and from my perspective of paramount importance, but we've got these provisions that we really stopped looking at. Indemnification provisions, another one that you just kind of looked at, and not to say we glossed over as lawyers, but they became so repetitive that you'd look for certain keywords and you'd move right on. But now we're sitting looking at it saying, well, hold on one second. In this specific situation with these unique parties on account of unique digital provisions, who's indemnifying who, who's liable to who, and how will this really work out? And I'm sure Mitch, who jumped off, would have something very insightful to say as a trial lawyer of much renown. There's just these boilerplate provisions that are going to have to be really redrafted, reworked, and certainly reconsidered as we dive deeper and deeper into the metaverse. To the second question, Trevor, all I can tell you is one of the things we're doing and having fun with is one of the log lines or the themes behind MetaDevCo, our development company, is physics need not apply. So when you walk into Meta Law Plaza, there's a 100-foot tall, rotating and levitating Lady Justice. And depending on what is going on at Meta Law Plaza, she may have different things in her scales. She may have someone DJing from one of her scales. She may have lasers shooting from her eyeballs. We don't really know, but that's part of the fun and part of the creativity that we're getting to explore, and that we know other people are going to explore. Is as you mentioned, and as we like to say, physics just need not apply. You can be as creative and as odd and as aesthetically non-conventional as you want to be, because you're building it, and that's exciting thing for me in the metaverse as a whole. Like this is your and your team's creation, and your ability to give birth to your vision. So physics need not apply, and that's why we say that.
Such great points, and hopefully, Trevor, that sort of gives him a bit of an overview of where this is going. It's super exciting times, folks, and I can't believe the hour has just sort of run past us. So that does sort of bring us to a conclusion for today. But I do just want to say, firstly, thank you so much to everybody in the audience. Can you just give us any form of emoji reaction if you've enjoyed today's discussion and got value from it? Fabulous. Really, really appreciate that. If you want to take a screenshot and maybe share this with your community along with some of your learns, or, reach out and connect with Francesca, particularly if it's anything related to IP, or Charles and what he's getting up to, or what some of the practical steps you need to take in terms of maybe teaching in the metaverse or taking the next step. And I would just like to say thank you so much to the amazing Francesca, Caleb, and of course, our guest speaker today, Charles, for sharing so much value and being so down to earth, because what you're doing, it takes guts, it takes determination, it takes learning, it takes failing, it takes putting yourself out there. And what you've achieved and what no doubt you're going to continue to achieve is super exciting. So I'm just super grateful to have been connected. So thanks so much once again to the wonderful Kimberly for making that happen. Kimberly King and the Red, folks, check her out. So yeah, and a shameless plug by myself. If you like my profile, you like the types of contents we create, I also run the Legally Speaking podcast, where we have our very own first NFT drop happening in collaboration with rally.io on the 30th of May. So if you want to know more details, you can check out our Discord server, which is on my profile, and you can be part of our community. So thank you all so much. Really appreciate you all. And we'll be back hopefully this time next week with some more Web3 focused content. But for now, folks, bye-bye, everybody. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Rob. Thanks, everyone.